Welcome to another episode of Pushing Beyond the Obvious. I'm your host, Mukesh Gupta, and I'm super excited today to host Nina Christian. Nina, for those of them who have not come across your work, can I please request you to introduce yourself and the body of work that you have done so far?
Sure. Well, hi, everyone. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me, Mukesh. I'm an author, speaker out of Melbourne, Australia, in the area of marketing and specifically personal branding. So I ran a marketing agency for 20 years. Before that, I had a number of marketing roles. And then, in the last few years, I could really see at the kind of tail end of after a few decades in agency land, the whole world of marketing shifting as people were starting to connect less with logos and inanimate identities and more with people and the stories behind the brand. And so I became fascinated in that and, went on a very interesting journey, which led me to where I am today, which is really it is personal branding, but it's really about a lot more of that. It's about helping people share their story, understand their uniqueness, and have the confidence to be able to express that with the world, but in a way that supports their commercial objectives. So if they're in a business, to grow their business, or if they're in a corporate role or a leadership role, to further the commercial KPIs that they might have sitting around that. And so it is a very wonderful and multifaceted and powerful tool that can be used in all of those contexts. And that's kind of what's led me to where I am today. So on a personal note, I'm also a mum of 5 kids, and so I am a very hands-on parent in the school phase of life.
That's interesting. I think so for the viewers and listeners, you know that I speak highly of Thought Leaders Business School run by Matt Church. I was part of that, and that's where I kind of got introduced to the work that Nina does. And I remember very clearly one presentation that you did, Nina. Probably that was your first presentation for the Thought Leaders Business School at one of the immersions, and that just blew me away. With the content, with the thinking, with the depth of thinking, and the ability to bring everything together in a cohesive and a structured way, and at the same time make it simple enough for people to not only understand but also relate to. So
do.
Yeah. So coming back to personal branding, right? So today, I think we are living in a world where building a personal brand is becoming more and more and more important, simply because of the fact that we are all always on, right? So whether it is on social media, whether it is in our organization, whether it is on stage presenting, whether it is in meetings, and the brand precedes us in a way. Even for corporate leaders, when they go into a meeting, what they stand for, and the kind of thinking and the kind of work that they do precedes them into the meeting, and that kind of creates both at times opportunities and at times challenges as well. So before we kind of explore this a little bit more, can I ask you to define what do you mean by a personal brand?
Sure. Well, there's a bunch of different definitions, and one of the ones that's most commonly thrown around was often attributed to Jeff Bezos, whether he said it or not, I can't confirm or deny. There's multiple opinions, but it's your personal brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. And I really so it's what people know about you, but I like to take it a step further, especially now. It's really not just what they say, but it's how they feel about you. And so and that's branding per se, whether it's a business branding or personal branding, it's the emotional response that is evoked in a person when they encounter your brand, your personal brand, and how they feel about you. And so the whole idea of personal branding as a verb or something that we do comes from the notion that we all do have a brand, whether we know it or not, whether we like it or not. The invitation and opportunity is there for how we want to craft that, how we want to influence that, and what we want that to be, because we do have a say over that. Now, where it comes, and we can kind of, go down this rabbit hole if you'd like to. But where it becomes interesting is where people try to craft something and put together something that isn't authentic to who they are, and it isn't in integrity with them and as a person, then there becomes a mismatch and an incongruency, which does not actually ultimately support and build that personal brand that people connect with. But when you do it in a way that is authentic, is aligned with you and who you are, then you can actually be strategic about that and use your personal brand equity to, in a commercial context, to pave the way for your current commercial focus. So again, that's going to differ whether you're a corporate leader, whether you're an expert and a subject matter expert and a professional, if you're a team leader, if you're an entrepreneur. But whatever the commercial and corporate object or the commercial objective is, the personal brand is a vehicle which is injecting the you-ness and the personality and the person into it in a way that's going to deepen a connection with people. So that's a fairly long, but I felt like it's worth elaborating on saying it's how people feel about you when they hear of your name, whether you're in the room, not in the room. And the other thing that I like to say in response to that Jeff Bezos quote is that often it's your personal brand that gets you in the room. So, you know, you're not being talked about if you're not known. And part of building the personal brand is actually getting into the room in the first place. So a personal brand will do that when you have a structured and focused approach to why you're doing it, how you're doing it, and you do it in an authentic and genuine way.
Interesting. So when you talk about being authentic, I completely understand the reason why we need to be authentic in terms of, because otherwise it becomes too difficult for us to continue to play a role, right? So in a way. But another challenge that I see in this scenario is the fact that not many people really know who they are and what they stand for. I remember there is this researcher called Dr. Tasha Urich, and she did a lot of research for about 4 years and wrote a book called Insight. And in the book, she talks about the fact that only 3 out of 16 leaders really are self-aware about who they are, what they stand for, and which means 80% of us are lying about us lying to ourselves. So given that that's the state of the world, given that that's how less self-awareness is prevalent amongst not just individuals but also amongst leaders, how do you go about identifying who is the authentic me?
That's a really big question, and there's so much wrapped up into that, Mukesh, definitely. But I'll speak to a very limited sliver of that through a personal branding lens, with the disclaimer that it is so much more beyond that. And what I have found through my own journey is that embracing and going on a quest, for want of a better word, to really understand who you are and why you are unique and significant in the world is key to unlocking the power of a personal brand. But it's also the key to unlocking the power in business, in life, in your career and profession and life generally, and relationships. So everything is really interlinked. I think a personal brand isn't really siloed in the sense that you can understand who you really are for the sake of building a personal brand, but it's not going to impact everything else. And conversely, if you go down that path of really being open to understanding who you are and why you're different and why that matters, and why that's important to you and to the world, that will have an inextricable effect on your personal brand. So in terms of how my experience has been, and the experience that I've led so many others through, so I kind of almost accidentally discovered this in a way, is that when I started out building Yeah, as a marketer of 3 decades now, I've been a practicing professional marketer, building brands internationally, working with so many, corporations and big names and small and startups and all facets and so many different industries. So I had a really good handle on marketing as a profession and branding as an area of expertise. But like many professionals, when it came to doing it for myself, I realized that it wasn't just about knowing the tools and having the techniques and having the expertise, because it really was an inner, an inner work, an inner process. And so you first really it's about asking the big questions, and really understanding, who am I? Why am I unique? Who am I to myself? I talk about this in my book, and the first probably half of the book is it's a book about personal branding, but you can't talk about the personal branding if you don't understand the person. And so the first half of it really is devoted to that process that I typically lead people through when I work with them, and that I went through myself, which is understanding who you are, so that then you understand how to express that to the world. And when I started doing that, it opened up, just the very asking of that question opened up so much revelation to me about who I was and why I was different, and why it was important to embrace that rather than hide from that, or suppress that, thinking that I needed to be something else that people wanted to see, but actually feel comfortable in why I'm different and who I am, and not run away from that. That actually became the power. And so as I was then able to combine that with the and then I went on a journey, first of all, of I guess wanting to know that, and then exploring that, and then extracting that out, through various different ways. And it takes time. It's not just something that you can do in half an hour and go, well, who am I? And here's the list. And then there's a next process, which is really about the embracing of that and internalizing it. And that's what starts to really build the confidence around that. And so when so many people, they are amazing people, they actually know that they're unique, they feel like they're the world's best kept secret, and maybe they've done a lot of that inner work and they're really strong in that department and clear, but they may not yet have the confidence as well to be able to express that to the world. So there's that's kind of the middle piece. There's the understanding who you are. You need that to definitely to be authentic. You need the understanding of how to express that elegantly, in a way that makes sense, in a way that's commercially strategic and supports the branding, the personal branding. So that's kind of at the front end. But then there's that middle piece, which is really another piece of the inner work around, developing the confidence in yourself. And so when you have those three things in place, that's when you have a very effortless and authentic personal brand, because you're confident knowing who you are, understanding how to express that and why you do it. And that takes the pressure off trying to think and create this thing that you think you need to put out there. And it becomes way more easeful, because it just becomes you being you, going about what you do, having the interactions that you do, and sharing about the things that you like to share about that makes sense for the work that you're doing. And people gravitate to that. And that just inherently then builds that brand. And it is just inherently, you're not trying to be authentic, you just are being you, and hence you are being authentic.
Very interesting. So I speak to so many different leaders, right? So and they fall in various spectrum or various places in the spectrum of yes, absolutely, I want to build a personal brand, to why do I need a personal brand, and everywhere in between. Some leaders, when I talk to them, they talk about the fact that, I'm a common man. I mean, I don't have anything special. I mean, yeah, of course, I do a lot of good things. I deliver high performance in my role, but there's nothing unique about me. So how do I go about building a brand? I mean, and the moment you talk about brand, all the different connotations of inanimate things and putting yourself out there, all of that kind of comes in and kind of stops them from exploring this more than they should be doing, because I think it is important. I personally feel that every one of us has a brand, whether we know it or not, whether we accept it or not. And the more intentional we are about building that and stepping into it, being the brand that we're talking about is super important. So now the question that I'm coming to you is, if someone says that okay, there's nothing special about me, there's nothing unique about, what do you do with that?
Well, for a start, there's two things that I would definitely start with. We're all unique because we all have unique fingerprints. We all have unique personalities. We have unique makeup of our character, and our intellect and our personality and our values. But what I also would say, if somebody's saying that, that's probably indicative of a bigger mindset challenge that they have, which is that this whole thing needs to be way bigger than it actually does. And they might thinking, well, I don't want to be Elon Musk or Gary Vaynerchuk, and why do I need to build a personal brand? But really, personal brand is about letting people know who you are, what you do, how you can help them, and why that matters, and why they can trust you. And so that is, and everybody, ideally, whether you're in customer service or your leadership or recruitment or technology, everybody can be served by having more people in the world understand what they do, why that's important, why they can be trusted. And so sharing a little bit more of your person and personality into that, it's like paves the way and actually becomes a superhighway to having people be more receptive of those key things that you in business ideally want them to know about you. And to actually be open to talking about you. So what typically happens when people and start to share more of their personality in a smart and strategic way? I mean, I always say building a personal brand, it's not about sharing what you had for breakfast on your Instagram, and nor is about, necessarily writing a book or, posting 5 times a week on LinkedIn. These are just, different things that people may or may not do, but it's also for inherently private people, that can feel like a challenge. It's like, well, I don't want to inject my personality into things. And I am of the very firm belief that if you don't want to, you actually don't need to. But I will say there are always things about you that you haven't realized yet that you are actually excited about sharing and happy to share. It's just about finding which of those things they are, because there are things that that will matter to you in your role. There are stories that are creating impact. There are things that you do that help people, and there are passions that you have that you would love to talk about. And so it's about leaning into those rather than feeling like you have to talk about everything and put your world out there like the Truman Show for everybody to see. It's not like that. And so just, micro baby stepping little snippets of that is going to cause people to want to bring you into their world more, to want to hear from you. And regardless of, your role or position or career, whether it's like to look for a new job, or you want to be in demand, or you want speaking engagements, or you want to be asked to do things, or you want more respect from your peers and colleagues and management internally, all of those things will be served by having a presence in some way, shape, or form, which is a bit more proactive, where people know about you, what you do, the impact that that's creating or how it's helping people, and why they can trust you. So that's what I would say to someone who's really hesitant and tentative. It's really about baby stepping and understanding that it's actually really going to serve you in this role. or your business objective, and that it doesn't have to be everything. It can be just very, very small and subtle things that actually feel really good for you to share about.
Interesting. And generally, when people talk about personal branding, they talk about, being on your face, on public. It need not be, right? So it could be you build a personal brand just specifically for within your organization, within your team, so that people know what to expect from you. I think that
Yeah.
also is a very, very important aspect of any leadership position, which is, people either those who follow you need to know what to expect from you, and where they can trust you, what kind of things they can bring to you. And at the same time, your peers and your bosses or your leaders also need to be able to do the same thing. And all of that, you can start from there, that you build a personal brand just specifically for those 20, 30 people who are in your life, so that they know exactly what to expect from you. Am
Yeah,
I
it's really
making sense
important.
here?
Yeah, it's really important to be clear on, well, it is important. It's very helpful as well to be clear on why you want to do this, just for the sake of it. So, because how you approach that then and what you bring to the table is going to be very different. So if you want to build a globally known brand, that's a very different proposition to, well, you just want a creative outlet to be able to share about what makes you happy, is very different to you want to grow a business and get customers versus you want to be an in-demand person in this space so that you're headhunted, or it's so that you get promotions, or so that you're asked to speak, or so that if you're leading a large team, you don't have to justify yourself. People see the decisions you're making and the impact that they're having. And so there's a lot more buy-in to the vision. So they're just, 4 or 5 different examples for why someone would build a personal brand. And absolutely, it's not one size fits all. So that's why, just going and saying, oh, someone needs to go and post on social media, that's just carrying out a task. That's not strategically building a personal brand. Often I'll be talking with teams in multinational organizations, and this team needs more global visibility so that they are in front of decision makers and the purse holders and the leadership and things like that. And so there's a concerted effort about how do we as a team build our credibility and respect within the organization. And so that's kind of an extension of personal branding is team branding as well, which is very, economically sensible, because sending, memos and flyers and things like that doesn't really cut it these days. But everyone's too busy to look at emails and spam and brochures and read websites. But people are interested in hearing about stories and seeing the impact of the work. So even internally, it's very, very powerful as well.
Interesting. So just shifting tracks a little bit. Congratulations on your book, Marketing Me. Can you tell us
Thank you very
about, what led you to writing this book, and what's the core concept that you're talking about in this book?
Yeah. So this book, it's a real passion piece for me, because it really outlines the journey that I went on in discovering myself, building a personal brand, and then training and teaching others how to do that. And I do that. I've done that for many, many years through programs and through mentoring and through speaking and through workshops and things like that. And the principles are so powerful, and they're not just marketing. I started off initially when I thought I want to write a book. I was like, oh yeah, I want to write a book about, how to do marketing, but then as in for a personal brand. But then I realized the power is actually in the whole identity part, and you can't create impact if you really aren't tuned into who you are. And then the combination of those two helps you to be influential and strategic in crafting a brand. So seeing the journey that my clients would go through when they would embrace these principles was very enlightening for me, because actually I found that, yes, it was helping them build their brand and their audience and be more well known for what they did, which is kind of the front end stuff. But what amazed me about the work that we would do together was how much of an impact it had on them personally, and how much more confident that they felt, and how much more alive and energized they felt, and how that had a flow and effect in so many other areas of their life. And I had this huge realization, which was, oh my gosh, like, yes, this is about personal branding, and I teach people personal branding, but actually it's a vehicle just to like having a life that's beyond the possibilities that you could have imagined, because you have the confidence to understand who you are and step into that. And then here are some practical things to help you do that. So I fell in love with this work because I saw the impact on so many people, and I'm only obviously one person, and I worked with a select group of people and organizations. Well, I have finite capacity, especially as a mum of 5. I work part-time, and so, you know, there's a limit to the number of people that I can work with, and I love that. But that is not therefore accessible to the number of people who actually need this message, or they might not work in an organization who's able to put them through that program, or have me to come and train or do a workshop. And so the material is so beautiful and so energizing, and I wanted to get that into the hands of so many people. And so I decided to put it into a book, so that, you know, it's a message that I truly believe in, because when you embrace the principles, you go from this whole thing of like trying to have impact and trying to make things happen, to just being who you are and letting that happen around you. And it's just so much more easeful and beautiful, rather than feeling like you have to do marketing. You just like be yourself, and then people start to reach out to you, and people know what you're about, and people come into your world. And what's more important is that they're much more of the right type of people as well, if you're a, you know, corporate professional or business owner or leader, because they understand what you're about and you feel comfortable expressing that. And so, yeah, that was my motivation. And then it became a labor of love. And so I'm really excited now that it's out there, and the feedback has just been, you know, every week I just get feedback from readers that blows me away, and it just completely validates my decision for why I wanted to put all of this into a book, because my motivation is to elevate powerful voices in the world and help them to spread their message and create that ripple effect, so that the next generation have way more positive role models who are being heard and being an inspiration. And so that was the book was that was the motivation for me to put that into a book.
I know. I mean, writing a book is not easy. It takes it saps you of a lot of energy, time, but at the same time, it is also a labor of love. It's just like giving birth to a child, if I may compare it to. That's probably the closest that I can come ever to experiencing what it is like to birthing something as well. So let's come back to the principles that you're talking about. So can you share the principles that you're talking about in the book, maybe at a very high level?
Yeah, it's kind of what I explained at the beginning, which is, first of all, before you rush out to building a personal brand, is really about first understanding who you are and getting very clear on that. And actually not just clear, but actually getting to a place where you embrace that, and you feel confident and in understanding your uniqueness and your difference, and how you know, express that in the world. So there's two kind of, if you imagine a big kind of if you imagine a Venn diagram, and on the left, you've got self-expression, because all of us, every single human, doesn't matter if you work in technology or IT or engineering or accounting or any profession, we are all creative beings, not just for artists and songwriters and authors. Every single person has expression of creativity. Problem solving is expression of creativity. And sharing your thoughts, wanting to help people, finding ways to make the world a better place. These are all expressions of creativity. And so in every single person, there is a desire to be creative and to express that in the world in some way. And then if you're on the other side, it's really about being strategic. So it's not just about art and a hobby. That's nice. But when we talk about personal branding, it's for a strategic objective. And the beauty of it is that you can morph and meld and evolve and adapt whatever that strategic objective is over time. Right now, it might be to get a promotion. Next, it might be to change jobs. Next, it might be to attract the right people into your team. Next, it might be to, you know, take up a board position or whatever that objective is. And then obviously maybe someone wants to start a portfolio career or, you know, so that commercial objective may change. However, the constant in the personal brand is you. And so, you know, we don't expect static, stagnant personal brands. People evolve, they develop, they change. That's part of a personal branding. And you get to lend your brand equity to whatever commercial purpose and objective you have at a particular time. And so that's the strategic part. And so when you've got this desire for self-expression and creativity, and your need to be strategic and funnel that into a purpose that's going to help your life, help your family, help you get to where you want to go, achieve those professional objectives, in there, in that intersection sits, you know, powerful content, powerful thoughts that are you, but are strategic as well. And so I go through the process of helping people see, first of all, the self-expression part and get clear on the identity part and why that matters, and then understand how to overlay that with a commercial focus so that it's to a specific point that, you know, is for a, you know, making their life or business or career better. So that's the basic premise of the book. And I'd say, you know, in the work that I do, in the speaking and workshops and mentoring, a really good chunk is on that first part, because, you know, if you just waltz in and say, here's a bunch of tools and here's a bunch of things to do and here's a bunch of tactics, then we all know it's good information, but it won't get actioned. But when you can cause that shift within an individual to say, wow, okay, I not only can do this, but I want to do this and I need to do this and I'm committed to do this and I understand how to do it and it doesn't feel overwhelming and easy, then it's easy to take the tools and tactics and strategize them. So that's where I spent the majority on the first part, because that's what a lot of people don't do. And then the second part becomes so much easier. So that's the basic premise of the book.
Very interesting. So apart from buying your book, right, what is it that you would ask someone to do right after listening to this conversation if they want to build a personal brand?
Okay, the most powerful thing is, I think, to start with asking yourself questions, ones that you don't necessarily have an easy and immediate answer to. So I talk a lot in the book about the human side of being a brand, which is very different to being in a marketing department or having somebody do your marketing, because you are the brand, right? But the first thing, and so you can't outsource this stuff, if the inner stuff. And I think the first powerful step that somebody could take would be to go on a walk and just think without a device, even without a notepad and paper, although that could come later, is just to think of, like, why do I even want to build a personal brand? And let the thoughts go out there without you having to answer those specifically, and thinking about, like, where would I start and what would be a logical first step, and what do I even want? Like, why would I want to do this? And so you won't have answers if you're a listener and you're taking this in right now. Don't be scared of the gap, and don't be scared of the silence, because you put those questions out and you may not have the answer straight away, but I guarantee you that it's so very powerful as you put those questions out there, because you are creating a space for those answers to come. And so they might not come like within half an hour, they might not come within a day, but they may do as well. They may come instantly as you open up and create the space to be intentional about that. Sometimes it happens instantly, but I would say start to think about those things, because it's very, very powerful. And then, you know, you're aligning your desire in the direction that you want to go, so that then when you start to see things, or things will come into your world, it's like, you know, the reticular activating system that we talk about so often, you know, when you don't see all these things, but then all of a sudden you're on a hunt for the red car, and then all you're seeing is red cars. So it's like this, like when when you start to ask the questions, you'll be opened up for the answers to come. And those answers are going to be unique to you. Those motivations are going to be unique to you. The pathway is going to be unique to you as well. So that would be an easy first, very accessible step that anybody could take, that not only will help them in the starting journey of building their personal brand, but actually starting to help them understand themselves better and, you know, help them do so in a way that's going to be able to go the distance. So it's not just a short spurt of activity over a couple of weeks where they go, oh, I got to go build my brand. Let me go and post on LinkedIn or write a blog, and then it falls off the wagon 3 weeks later. This is people starting to build the discipline of thinking strategically, thinking intentionally, and thinking openly in a way that allows for the answers to come. And sometimes they'll come in a way you least expect it, but will be so powerful. So that would be a great place to start, in my opinion.
Great advice. I think one of the best examples that I have, analogies that I have had to explain this is that, so when we are trying to ask ourselves these difficult questions, it is like getting into a room full of really smart people working all the time and going and telling them that, this is what I want to find answers for, and then going away. So this is your conscious mind going and telling your subconscious mind that this is what I want to know, and walking away. And the subconscious mind, those guys, they keep working in the back end. And suddenly, when they find an answer, it could be instant, it could be maybe a week later, maybe 10 days later. But as soon as they find the answer, they'll let you know. And so it is important to get them to work on those questions.
Love that
as
way
long
explanation, Mukesh. Love that. So good.
And so, tactically speaking, slightly shifting focus here. So what is the biggest mistake that you see people doing when it comes to trying to, go about building their personal brand?
Thinking that it's just about the marketing, thinking that it's just about social media, thinking that they have to be on social media, thinking that they have to be like other people. There's not really one biggest mistake. I think if I were to sum that up into one big mistake, it's not having a unique and intentional path that they really believe in and understand why they're doing it and feel a lot of conviction in why they're doing it. And then they go to tactics too quickly, and then that burns out. So a lot of people try to do too much. And I'm a really big believer in, if your personal brand effort is taking you more than 1 hour a week, you're spending too long on it and it's not sustainable. I talk about that in my book. I talk about that a lot in my training and workshops, is that how to actually do marketing and you build your personal brand in 1 hour a week. Because if you're a business owner, you're running a business. If you're a professional, you've got a job. And we all have life and families outside of that. So trying to do too much in the effort to be seen or build a brand, it's just unsustainable, because, we all know there's ups and downs of life and health. So not rushing too quickly to the tactics, not trying to do too much, and also not doing things that are strategically aligned and well considered would be, I know you asked for one, I gave you 3, so I'm an overachiever. So, big mistakes that people make when it comes to building their brand.
So have you ever seen someone or have someone come to you and say, I want to be like Seth Godin, or I want to be like, Gary Vaynerchuk, or I want to build a brand like, let's say Elon Musk might be too bit of a stretch, but, like X. So what do you do with someone like that?
Oh, look, I think most of the people that I have the privilege of working with have a fairly good level of self-awareness. Let's say I've been around the traps for quite a long time. I had a startup back in the .com boom, and I was doing marketing in the 90s and the 2000s and pre-social media and all the things. So I understand like the rise of like the hustle culture and entrepreneurship and all the rest. I think these days, like that, and I understand the whole digital marketing space, but I think most of the people that I work with tend to realize that they are drawn not by wanting to be world famous for having a personal brand, but it's that they realize there's something inside of them that can make a contribution to the world. And so that in order for that to happen and for their impact to be multiplied, more people need to know about it. And so they may not be marketers themselves, or they may be marketers, but it's, you know, challenging when it comes to doing it for yourself, because you can't always see the ingredients from the inside of the tin. And so they're motivated by a desire to help more people and scale their impact versus I want to be a global name, you know, like, you know, Kim Kardashian or The Rock or whoever it is. I think there's a sense of, you know, those people like Seth Godin, he's built his brand on a lifetime of doing exceptional marketing. Elon Musk doesn't have to go out and, you know, hustle to quote unquote build a brand and do digital marketing. He's just, you know, pushing boundaries and just doing, you know, groundbreaking new stuff that people are fascinated about. And he happens to just be not shy about injecting his thoughts and personality into that. So I don't think there's a thing of, oh, I want to go out and do it. For most of the people that I work with, it's more an inherent desire to want to have more impact in the world and scale their message. And I think then just building a personal brand is a means and not an end in that circumstance.
Yeah, I think what you said, what I take away from what you just said is that, you know, as long as we are trying to build a brand, not purely for our own selves, but to actually contribute what we've got to others, I think that's a good place to start. So if I want to build just a brand just for me, I want to be famous, I want to make $1 million or whatever, not probably the right place to start. Did I get that right?
Yeah, look, it is, and your efforts are they're gonna be unsustainable and they're gonna fall flat. I mean, at the end of the day, what are people magnetizing to you about? Your desire to be a brand? You know, like if you think about it, you thought leadership and personal branding go hand in hand. And you know, to have a personal brand, you obviously have a thoughts or lifestyle or something like that that people want to follow. And so, you know, to have substance, you need to have those thoughts in the first place, or you need to be having that impact, or you need to be doing something that people are very keen on following. You can't manufacture that. That's not the era that we're in. And the trajectory that we're in, which is moving away from that, is only going to be more and more and more so, especially now with the, you know, proliferation of AI and the ability technologically to quote unquote, you know, generate a brand and generate content and things like that. The human factor is just continually needing to elevate, and the personal connection factor. So I think you're you know, you're right in your understanding of that it's really about desire to have impact, because people, they can smell the intention behind something, and if it's not aligned with their own values, then they're probably not going to really want a lot of part of that. And then if you aren't getting traction with what you're doing, eventually, you know, and it's not sustainable, then you won't be around for the long haul anyway. So, you know, I think most people of substance, they want to be around for a long time. They want to create impact. They want to create a legacy, whether that's within their organization, whether that's to the next generation, whether that's in their industry or community. It doesn't have to be on a global scale. For some people it is, but for some people it might be, you know, in the sphere that they're in at the moment. And so just making sure that you as a person are able to go the distance is so important in that. And having that commitment to your message and your why you're even doing that in the first place is a really important part of that.
Super. So we have very limited time left for us. We generally end all our conversations with 3 questions. So the first one is, you know, what is a piece of content or, you know, whatever it could be. It could be a movie, book, a person who's had a significant impact on your life, and how or why or what impact.
Oh, there's so many that have had a significant impact on my life. There was, yeah, and obviously, you know, having lived 5 decades, it's hard to sum up into a single person. I think when we initially discussed this question and how I understood it was really about like what pieces of influence would be also most useful in helping craft a personal brand, or have been impactful or influential in that space. So I might kind of comment on that, because I feel like that will be useful as well, rather than just me personally. But one of and these have had a big, profound impact on my life when it's come to building a brand and personal life, definitely. I love the work of James Clear in Atomic Habits, where he talks about we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. And so that's been a really big part of my relentless pursuit to find better and sustainable ways to actually build a brand. And I also love, this is kind of fresh, I've not shared, I don't think, about this publicly, actually, because not one, it just hasn't come up, but it's a piece that I go to quite often by, it's a YouTube video by Jack Conte, the founder of Patreon, where it's called Work to Publish. And it's a beautiful piece around not waiting until your work is perfect in the world before you get out there, but being okay to share things in the world and just get that muscle going. And that's been a really big part of building my own confidence, especially in those initial days, around putting out more things and just having a test mindset and experimenting, understanding that not everything is going to relate to everybody, but if I do it in integrity and see my my content and my work and effort as art and creative expression and just me sharing my message, I'm less attached to what people think and more attached to the vision and building the muscle of being able to get it out there. So yeah, that'd be a couple of resources that I have found useful in personal brand journey.
So the next question is, what is an advice given to you which has had the significant impact on your journey? Can also consider it from the personal branding lens as well, if you want to.
Yeah, sure. You know, that's so, yeah, what piece of advice has had a huge impact on me? You know, I think it's the quote. It's, you know, a few people have said it. There's a bit of, you know, conjecture as to who originated that. It might have been Oscar Wilde. But it's be you because everyone else is taken. And, you know, there's been a number of other people. So if I've quoted that incorrectly or whatever, full disclaimer to, and, you know, apologies. But it's that whole idea that, you know, you have to be yourself and not try and be someone else. And for a long time, I did feel like I needed to be this polished professional person that people are going to respect and see me as credible and as an expert. And then as I started to be okay to let the guard down, you know, in a way that felt comfortable and let people see the real me, that just had a huge impact on my own confidence as well as my life. So yeah, that, I think that was a piece of advice that I read and took to heart.
Yeah, I mean, I completely understand that, and I respect you for that, because I know on your LinkedIn newsletters, I remember you sharing pictures of you and your kids on a beach, you know, and how that kind of, you know, inspired you to do something else. You're being very you, not hiding anything, or not trying to be someone else. So that clearly comes out in everything that you do in your newsletters and in the conversation that we're having as well. So the last question that we end all our conversations with is, the show is called Pushing Beyond the Obvious. So what is so obvious to you, but people miss all the time, and that drives you crazy?
I love this question. Oh my gosh, this one is a really easy one. So people don't realize how unique and special and significant they are. They think, how am I different, or how am I unique? There's nothing special about me. But when they actually start to scratch beneath the surface and understand and appreciate that there is so much beauty in them and so much possibility in them, and they start to see that changes everything. And so it's, you know, to your point, when I can see that and it's so obvious and they can't see that, it's a joy to then help them unpack the layers so that they can actually see that and see that shift. But yeah, if you haven't gone through that shift yet, just know that that's and are feeling that thing of like, well, how am I special and how am I unique and what have I got to share? That there is something in you, because every single person does have something extraordinary to share, and just leaning into embracing going on the journey to even understand what that is personally. Even if you're not ready to share that yet, that's okay. It will take some time, but just, opening your fact up to understanding your uniqueness is, oh my gosh, it's so powerful and yet so underrated. So yeah, the easy answer to that one, Mukesh.
Thank you so much for your time and sharing your insights, Nina. Can you tell people where they can find more information about the book, about your website, about where they can reach you, and how they can if they want to work with you, how can they do so?
Oh, sure. So you can find me at my website, very easy, ninachristian.com. Everything to know about working with me is there. If you'd like me to come and speak or train at your organization, or, come and talk about the book, or, do a workshop, anything like that. And you're welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn. If you're watching this, pretty easy to find on LinkedIn. Reach out, connect. Let me know you watched the podcast. If you have any questions or reflections, I'm really approachable and happy to have a conversation. So feel free to reach out anytime.
Super. So I'll link all these in the show notes as well. And all said and done, I think I highly recommend that the viewers and audience actually subscribe to your newsletter. I think they're fantastic, and buy your book. Thank you so much for spending your time and sharing your insights, Nina.
You're most welcome, Mukesh.